remember cutting the victim's throat?
No, no, sir.
We head to Idaho Falls, Idaho. The defendant is Brian Drips, who's in court for a plea deal in the rape and murder of Angie Dodge, which occurred over 23 years ago. So what took so long? At the time, another suspect, Christopher Tapp, confessed to the crime after intense and coercive questioning by police. Tapp pleaded not guilty but was convicted and sentenced to life in prison. For years, Tapp insisted he was innocent. Then, in 2019, a DNA sample taken from Drips matched the killer. Drips was arrested and charged with the crime. Now, at age 55, Drips finally appears before a judge.
If you'll please stand or raise your right hand, my clerk will put you under oath.
To avoid the death penalty, Drips pleads guilty to both crimes.
Have you had a full chance to review the plea agreement?
Yes, I have.
Count one, as set out in the information, is a charge of murder in the first degree. How do you plead?
Guilty.
All right, tell me what you did, which makes you guilty of this charge.
But the murder one was I went over there with the intent to just rape her. I was pretty high on cocaine and alcohol. I had a pocket knife with me. I didn't mean to murder her. I didn't think I did, but I guess it happened. I remember, the rape part. I'm pulling down her pants, and then I remember leaving. That's about all I remember of that evening.
Do you remember cutting the victim's throat?
No, sir.
Do you deny that that occurred?
I don't deny it. I mean, I can't remember it though.
Next, it was the rape charge.
Count two is a charge of rape. How do you plead to count two?
Guilty.
Drips is later sentenced to 20 years to life in a state prison. As for Christopher Tapp, who lost nearly 20 years of his life for someone else's crime, he's exonerated.
Tapp, would you like to speak to the court?
Yes, Your Honor.
I'm thankful that I've been given this second chance of life. I've wasted 20 years of my life for something that I never did. But again, I also grew up in this 20 years.
There's clear and convincing evidence the defendant was convicted of a crime for which he did not commit.
Tapp was released from prison with his good name finally cleared. For our next story, we head to Raleigh, North Carolina for the trial of Jonathan Sander.
Specifically planned by him as suggested by the jail phone calls that you've heard in this case, and they are calculated.
Sander's charged with first-degree murder in the killing of his next-door neighbors Sandy Mazzella, his wife Stephanie, and Mazzella's mother Elaine.
He's framed. All right. That's the way it is. And justice will be served.
The Mazzellas and Sanders were friends and business partners until things began to unravel a few months before the killing. Sander was accused of sexual misconduct by the Mazzella's 14-year-old daughter. And according to police, it was these allegations motivated Sander to enter the Mazzella home armed with a shotgun to murder the three victims. While speaking to police, Sander admitted he was responsible.
I know it was me. I know I did whatever happened. I know it was me.
Even with this confession, Sander pleads not guilty, claiming he was set up and that the real killer is Sandy Mazzella's father. And during the trial, Sander wasn't shy about sharing his other opinions regarding the killing.
Yeah, with no blood under it.
Mr. Sander, please be quiet.
It's fact.
Mr. Sander,
They didn't
please.
look up
Mr. Sander.
And What were her last words?
What everybody else did that's watching this.
Whatever.
No blood under that wound.
Mr. Sander, please
This is
be,
my life involved. I was frank.
remove him from the courtroom, please.
Remove me from the court.
Hey, stop it! Hey! Yeah!
Throughout the trial, Sander continued to lash out.
And
You're telling me I blasted
Mr. Sander, get him out of here. Get him out of here. Get him out of here. Mr. Sander, Mr. Sander.
After a trial lasting several weeks, a jury comes back with a unanimous verdict.
We, the jury, by unanimous verdict, find the defendant, John Frederick Sander, to be guilty of first-degree murder of Sandy Mazzella, guilty of first-degree murder of Stephanie Mazzella, guilty of first-degree murder of Elaine Mazzella.
Sander's convicted on all charges, but he's not done speaking out.
I did shoot Sandy. I barely wounded him. After I left, Sal Mazzella shot and killed his family. Why? For insurance money.
When Sander was finished, it was Superior Court Judge Graham Shirley who had the final word.
I want you to realize that if you live out your life expectancy of 25.1 years, that 2-minute period is going to have to repeat itself 6,578,000 times before you take your last breath. And when you take your last breath, you're going to die alone and you're going to die forgotten.
Jonathan Sander was sentenced to life in prison with no chance of parole. We're in Versailles, Kentucky for a circuit court sentencing hearing. 66-year-old Vicki Brodigan has entered an Alford plea to manslaughter in the death of her ex-boyfriend. This means she didn't admit guilt, but acknowledged there was enough evidence to convict her of the manslaughter charge. Almost 2 years earlier, 66-year-old David Clark was found shot to death in his home. Investigators connected Brodigan to the shooting and then found evidence that she may have previously made 2 additional attempts to kill David by putting eye drops and Viagra in his coffee. A grand jury indicted her on charges of murder, burglary, evidence tampering, 2 counts of attempted murder for the earlier incidents. Brodigan's attorney negotiated a deal for her client to plead to a lesser charge of manslaughter. Today, she's before Judge Jeremy Maddox for sentencing.
Ms. Brodigan, on the second day of March 2022, you appeared in court with your counsel. You entered a guilty plea to the amended count of manslaughter in the first degree, a Class B felony. Commonwealth made a recommendation at that time that you be sentenced to 10 years to serve. You were advised the court would not to follow that recommendation. You would be allowed to withdraw your guilty plea. Ma'am, do you remember these events and did you understand them?
Also in court today is David Clark's daughter, who stands with the prosecutor, Commonwealth's attorney Sharon Muse.
The next of kin of the victim is here. Is she wishing to speak or read her victim impact statement?
She previously said no. I just want her to die.
Well, she's not eligible for the death penalty, and I can't carry out an execution in the courthouse. Ms. Brodigan, before the court pronounces its sentence, would your attorney like to make any statements to the court on your behalf?
No, Judge.
Although both sides have agreed to a 10-year sentence in exchange for the plea, Judge Maddox is not bound by this deal. He has the authority to impose a harsher sentence solely at his discretion.
Ma'am, I can't, with this admitted charge that she's pled guilty to, I cannot give her a life sentence. I just can't do that. I know your father is dead, and I can't do anything to bring him back. Someone's lost their life here. I cannot give her life in prison, but I don't have to follow the 10 years either. So therefore, the defendant is sentenced to 20 years.
The gallery erupts in spontaneous applause when the judge exercises his right to set aside the recommended sentence and impose his own. Brodigan is sentenced to 20 years instead of the 10 she was expecting when she walked into court today. Attorneys on both sides are stunned. The prosecution attempts to save the deal, which was negotiated with the approval of the victim's family.
Your Honor, I would ask you to consider that this was a mediated agreement with,
I understand that.
so they're going to withdraw their plea?
Yes.
Okay.
With the change of sentence, the defense opts to withdraw Brodigan's plea. This means the case will now go to trial, something the victim's family was hoping to avoid.
We don't want to go to trial.
I understand that, but as the presiding judge in this, we have, someone is dead, and someone's life is worth more than 10 years. And this goes every case that comes before this court. And it's my job to make that determination. And
Will you be our judge?
yes, ma'am. Thank you. We don't need that. This isn't a taping of The Price is Right.
Brodigan now faces trial on the original charges of murder, attempted murder, burglary, and evidence tampering. She remains in jail awaiting trial. We're now in the El Paso County Courthouse in El Paso, Texas.
All rise.
Please be seated. The record should reflect the attorneys for the state, the attorneys for the accused are present in the courtroom.
The man you see here is 41-year-old Daniel Villegas, accused of killing 2 teens in 1993 when he was just 16. At that time, without an attorney or his parents present, Villegas says he was coerced by an El Paso detective into confessing to the murders. Despite recanting the confession hours later, it became a key piece of evidence for the prosecution.
Are present in the courtroom. The court has received a message from the jury indicating that they've reached a verdict.
Villegas has been on trial 3 separate times for this crime and has maintained his innocence throughout.
Let's bring the jury in.
His first trial in 1994 ended in a mistrial due to a hung jury. A 1995 retrial ended with a conviction for capital murder, and Villegas was sentenced to life in prison. After spending 18 years in prison, that verdict was thrown out in 2013 because of ineffective assistance of counsel. Villegas was released in January of 2014 and has remained out on bond as he awaited a 3rd trial. During that time, he fathered 2 children. Though the prosecution continued to insist on his guilt, there was no DNA, no firearm, and no forensic evidence presented linking Villegas to the shooting.
If the defendant will please stand.
The last 25 years of his life, much of it in prison, has all led up to this moment.
In the District Court of El Paso County, Texas, 409th Judicial District, the state of Texas versus Daniel Villegas, number 94-0D09328. Verdict Form B. We, the jury, find the defendant Daniel Villegas not guilty of
For the first time since he was 16 years old, 25 years ago, Daniel Villegas is a free man.
Mr. Villegas, you have been under many conditions in this court. You are no longer under any conditions in this court. You are free to leave. Good luck to you.
Now to the Moore Justice Center in Brevard County, Florida.
2 charges, assault and resisting. You have the
where public defender Andrew Weinstock and his client are appearing before Judge John Murphy, whose voice you hear.
Public defender, what do you want to do?
But they filed?
They have.
I'm not waiving.
All right, what do you want to do?
What do you want to do? I'm not waiving. You want to set it for trial, set it for trial.
Judge Murphy wants the defendant to waive his right to a speedy trial because the court's schedule's backed up. Weinstock isn't budging, and tensions are mounting.
If I had a rock, I would throw it at you right now.
You know,
Stop pissing me off. Just sit down. I'll take care of it. I don't need your help.
No,
Sit
you know
down.
what? I'm the public defender. I have a right to be here, and I have a right to stand and represent
sit
my
down.
clients.
If you want to fight, let's go out back and I'll just beat
Let's go
your
out
ass.
They both head to the hallway behind the courtroom, just out of the view of the court's cameras. Believe it or not, they get into a physical altercation until Judge Murphy returns to the courtroom alone.
Thank you.
I will catch my breath eventually. Man, I'm an old man.
Once Judge Murphy catches his breath, he continues with the rest of the hearings without Weinstock present.
Your choices, considering there's probably going to be a changeover in personnel, are setting it for trial June 9th, or if you were wanting to waive speedy, we would set it for July 15th.
I would like to get it done as fast as possible.
That doesn't help me.
The incident's investigated by the Florida Judicial Qualifications Commission, who charged Judge John Murphy with threatening to commit violence against an assistant public defender, engaging in a physical altercation with counsel, and resuming his docket while defendants were without counsel. The case eventually reaches the Florida Supreme Court, which orders the immediate suspension and permanent removal of Judge Murphy from his post. Andrew Weinstock later resigns from the public defender's office.
Good morning. Are you Virginia Wagner?
Hi, Miss Wagner.
Next, we head to Lawrenceburg, Kentucky. The defendant, 85-year-old Virginia Wagner. The charge? Reckless driving and driving with a suspended license. The vehicle? A souped-up Dodge Dart.
You had
like
that
a race car.
You had that fast car. I know you did. You didn't need that fast car.
I know.
Wagner doesn't refute the charge, but places most of the blame on the car itself.
I'm sorry it happened, but the car that I was driving was like a race car. It had an extra motor in it. The car is not going to be driving anymore.
Okay. I would recommend a $100 fine.
All right. You understand the offer from the Commonwealth is that you would plead guilty to operating on a suspended license and you would have to pay a $100 fine? I know it now. Okay, did you understand though that, do you want to accept that and plead guilty today? Yes, I'm guilty, yeah.
As a packed gallery looks on, Wagner finishes up her business. That is, until
Yes, sir.
an unusual request is submitted to the judge.
Ma'am, he wants to pay your fine.
A good Samaritan who gave his name as Mike Evans offered to pay Wagner's fine.
So, Miss Wagner, you go down.
Sit here and I just take the paper.
Yeah, you give him your paper and he's gonna go down there and pay that for you. Thank you, sir.
Wagner appreciated the man's generosity, but after initially accepting his money, she later returned the cash, paid the fine herself, bringing an end to Virginia Wagner's time behind the wheel. Next, we're in the Pinellas County Justice Center in Clearwater, Florida, for the penalty phase of a murder trial. 27-year-old Marco Parilla has pled guilty to first-degree murder and is facing a possible death sentence. 4 years earlier, Tarpon Springs police officer Charles Kondek was responding to a noise complaint about a car playing loud music at 2 a.m. When he arrived on scene, Officer Kondek found Parilla, a convicted felon who at the time was wanted for a probation violation, sitting alone in the car. Parilla then shot at Officer Kondek 7 times with a .40 caliber gun. One of the shots hit above Kondek's bulletproof vest, seriously wounding him in the chest. As Parilla fled the scene, he backed over Kondek with his car. Parilla was arrested after crashing the car into a pole not far from the original crime scene. Condek, a 17-year vet of the Tarpon PD and married father of 6, died an hour later at a nearby hospital. In an effort to try to avoid the death penalty, Parilla pled guilty to all charges. In front of the jury that will decide his punishment, a visibly shaken Parilla took the stand to address Officer Condek's family.
I'm ashamed of what I done. I wish I could take it back. And I know that I will carry this burden with me forever because I'm truly sorry for what I've done to you and your family.
The next day, the jury reached a verdict. The gallery is crowded with spectators, including Officer Condek's family and supporters.
Marco Parilla should be sentenced to death.
The gallery erupts in applause, but it's short-lived as the judge notices an error on the jury's verdict form. The foreman has checked the option indicating a unanimous vote for the death penalty and a 10-2 vote for life in prison. It can't be both. The judge is not happy and sends them back to the jury room.
Just fix the mistake.
If the jury doesn't unanimously agree on a death sentence, then Parilla automatically gets life in prison. When the jury returns, it's confirmed. The verdict will be life in prison. Parilla has escaped a death sentence. After the emotional day's events, Officer Condek's widow, Teresa, addresses the man who killed her husband, and she does not hold back.
You're the reason we're here all today. You killed my husband. I wasn't supposed to say goodbye to him in a coffin. I wasn't supposed to be a widow at 43. You shoved me into this life of grief, and I will never be the same person. The least you can do is look at me. That's the least you can do. You shouldn't be alive, even if it's in prison. You don't deserve the right to talk to your family, to write anybody, or to have visits with your family. You took those things from us. I wanted the death penalty for you, but either way, your time in hell is coming.
Parilla is currently serving his life sentence at the Walton Correctional Institution in Florida. We take you inside the Jackson County Courthouse and the sentencing of 31-year-old Camilla Gamet. She was convicted of first-degree murder in the brutal killing of her boyfriend, Marcel Hill. According to the evidence presented at trial, Gamet used a frying pan, a floor lamp, and a large knife, which she used to stab Hill 12 times. Gamet claimed self-defense, saying she believed Hill was an intruder. When the verdict came back guilty, Gamet sticks to her story. Though local news only caught a handful of moments, courtroom cameras captured every minute.
Is there anything that you want to tell the court before I impose sentence? Is there anything you want to tell the victim's family who are here today?
I just want to say that I stick by the truth, which is that I did react in self-defense. I did love Marcel, and basically at trial, the way I was portrayed, mostly everything was lies. There was a little bit of truth, but mostly I was convicted off of lies, and I do plan to appeal it, and that's all I have to say.
Okay.
Judge John McBain did not agree.
I have to say.
Okay. Got anything you want to tell the court about the 12 stab wounds that you did in self-defense?
The alleged 12 stab wounds?
Well, I don't think the pathologist lied about those.
No, I don't have anything further to say.
Before Gamet's sentencing, the victim's aunt, Diana Banks Joyner, addressed both Gamet and the court.
You did leave a big hole in our hearts and a void that will never be filled. You took the life of our sister's only child. You took a bloodline out of our family. And we hope that each and every day that you remember the cries of help that he screamed as you plunged that knife in and out of his body.
The defendant appeared to be unmoved by anything Miss Banks had to say.
So we, the family of Marcel, would like to thank God for the special gift that you will receive today from the judge.
Is that it?
When I finish, I'll let you know.
Oh, okay. You serious?
You talk again, I'll have my court officer put a piece of duct tape in your mouth. You understand it? Try it one more time and see what happens to your mouth. You got something else to say?
Even with the threat of duct tape, Gamet continues.
I'm done.
Miss Sylvia, get the duct tape.
I'll sit here and listen to the lies.
You know what? She's got a right to talk to the court after you murdered a relative of hers. And you're gonna shut your mouth or I'm gonna have some duct tape put on it.
Well, you attacked
All right. We'll wait here for a moment till we can get her quiet.
While the judge waits for duct tape to arrive, he allows Banks to continue.
Remember Marcel and the love you had for him as we ask God to teach us to learn to forgive you because there is no love. Amen.
And then the prosecutor rips into Gamet.
You know, quite frankly, I have no idea how she just did that with the composure that she did. I thank God also that jury made the only right decision. And that is that today we have no choice but to send her where she will also die.
But before it was all over, it was Judge McBain who had the last word.
This is one of the worst cold-blooded murders I've seen in a long time. You end up ultimately hit him in the head so hard with a pan that you actually cave in the front of his skull, and then you stabbed him no less than 12 times. You gutted him like a fish in that apartment, too. You were relentless. You stabbed, you stabbed, you stabbed, you stabbed, you stabbed until he was dead. I agree with the family. I hope you die in prison as well. You know, and if this was a death penalty state, you'd be getting the chair.
Judge McBain sentenced Gamet to life in prison without the chance of parole. Next, we're at the city courthouse in St. Louis, Missouri. Longtime couple Don Wofford and Tawana Bass are joined by a justice of the peace and finally tying the knot after 20 years together.
You, Don Lamar Wofford, take Tawana Latoya Bass, and lawfully wedded wife. Tawana, I wed thee. And I pledge to you forever. My faith.
After Wofford recites his vows, his soon-to-be wife, well, she's not quite ready to recite her vows just yet.
And I am telling you, I'm not going. You're the best man I'll ever know, and there's no way I can.
As you can hear in the background, others in the courtroom take notice of the bride's powerful voice.
You're the best man I'll ever know,
But someone wants them to keep it down.
and there's no way I can ever go. No, 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 no way.
As a surprise to her husband, Tawana belts out Jennifer Holliday's "And I'm Telling You" from the musical Dreamgirls.
I'm staying, and you're gonna love me. Oh, you're gonna love me.
Thanks for being a fan of Court Cam. Subscribe to A&E to never miss a new video and catch full episodes on aetv.com.